back with Allison Sports Video Podcast, and we're so excited to talk to you guys today about all things March Madness. I'm your host, Kendra Stowe, and I'm here with sports broadcaster and multimedia journalist Marilyn Payne on this very special month that is International Women's Month. In fact, International Women's Day was just 2 days ago, so Marilyn, thanks so much for being here with us today for that exact reason, to celebrate women all over, but especially here at Allison Sports, those in the industry just like yourself. So do you want to start us off by just giving us your quick 30-second elevator pitch about kind of your background, how you ended up into sports, what drew you into broadcasting and being a woman in sports in the first place?
Kendra, I'm really excited to be talking with you and to hear that you're hosting this march for Women's Month, as we look back through all the impact, not just in sports, right, but throughout the globe. For me, my sports reporting career began as an eighth grader. In middle school, my English teacher said you should write for the yearbook, and all I wrote was the sports stories. It was really a lackluster sports middle school. Our football team didn't win a game, but I got hooked and then got into journalism in high school. I was writing up through college, got into broadcast there, and just kind of did a little bit of both throughout different points of my career.
So yeah, speaking of that, that kind of reminds me, like we have seen so many changes in women's sports lately. The NCAA women's tournament, the coverage has moved to the same time as men now. So, I mean, let's talk a little bit about that. You know, the NCAA budget, for example, they compared it line by line with the men's budget this year. And we know that was a huge problem last year. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it was really an overdue change, right? Everybody knows that. It was interesting to see there be no national tournaments in 2020. And then as soon as they came back, we'd seen the explosion of TikTok. And that's really where the women in the NCAA blew up what they were having to look at compared to what the men had in terms of resources and access when it comes to really their health and like just rehabbing and weight rooms and that type of stuff that is so instrumental to what they do on the court. Those things were the biggest shock, I think, on a global stage. So to see the NCAA doing what it's doing, which is just equalizing the playing field, is major. When it comes to the coverage, ESPN announced, actually I was covering a pair of women's basketball games, Kendra, your alma mater at NC State, the week that ESPN announced that they are setting up this Sunday really men's bracketology, 2 hours of women's basketball NCAA coverage to release their bracket, and then releasing the men's afterwards. So it's all rolled into the same coverage, just like the NCAA itself is rolling into, equal resources.
Yeah, speaking of that, we know that the NCAA's empire is basically built on men's hoops. So there's $186 trillion worth of sponsorships, and that's kind of what they're known for. But I found it really interesting this year. Women's partnerships went from 7 in 2019 to 11 in 2022. And I think a lot more people are just buying into this, where this isn't just, oh, we have to do this anymore. This is where the future's headed.
Yeah, I think too, you see, it's different from a broadcast rights standpoint because of the structure of the NCAA tournament being on CBS and True TV and all the different networks they put it on. ESPN owns and has the rights to all of the women's games, and they sold out their entire ad allotted opportunity for sales with sponsorships on all of the national tournament coverage about 6 weeks earlier this year than they ever have before. And so it shows you that businesses and brands are starting to recognize that they've been leaving things on the table in terms of eyes that they could be getting in front of with sponsoring women's sports. So it's great to see people catching up.
Yeah, that brings me to the topic of NIL, which, we're all still navigating through it. It's different in all these different states and stuff like that. But I saw something really interesting. Actually, you and I discussed this before, but women's basketball is actually the top sport, or one of the second top sport for NIL compensation, only behind men's football. So it's football, women's basketball, men's basketball. So let's talk a little bit about NIL for a minute. What are your thoughts on that?
We'll see what happens with it, right? We're in year one still, as I think everyone expected. Football players, in part because the season rolled out right after the announcement was made, but also because I think the numbers reflect the income that a football program brings in athletic department. So football's bringing in the most money, even when you have a basketball school. The stadium's bigger, the rights are larger for the games to broadcast all of that. So the NIL mirrors money for an athletic department, but to see women get these sponsorships, UConn women's basketball is certainly the first program that I think everybody thinks of when you talk about dynasties. Beckers, Paige Buckets, she trademarked her slogan there, and she's the first college athlete, period, that Gatorade signed after naming her player of the year when she was a senior. And it just shows you, like, when a brand makes the right decision to go forward and sign the right athlete, especially when they're a woman like Paige is, with the history that she had in just her freshman season with UConn, the door's wide open.
Yeah, we know that TikTok obviously has just blown up as a marketing platform. It's outpacing any other social media platform. And I saw something that the Cavinder twins, who are both female hoopers at Fresno State, there was a statistic that said that they could actually make over 600,000 this year from their joint YouTube channel and joint TikTok together, while their coach is only making 262,000 as his base salary. So it's just really interesting to see all these partnerships and opportunities available, and to think that, like, these college athletes, they're finally getting the recognition and, the opportunity to actually make money off of their likeness.
Yeah, I think what's kind of crazy when you talk about the women's side of NIL deals and sponsorship opportunities, AZ Fudd is actually one of Paige Bueckers' teammates at UConn, and she said that the opportunity for women's sponsorships is so impactful at the NIL and collegiate level, because for a lot of women athletes, they're going to be exposed more at a collegiate level than they are necessarily a lot of the basketball players in particular going overseas to play. And so the biggest reach that you can find in terms of the volume of people you can have sponsorships for, or teams you can have connections with, fan bases and audience, it's at the collegiate level with women's athletics.
It's the 50th anniversary of Title IX this June. ESPN's doing a docu-series. There's a lot of people already celebrating it in conjunction with International Women's Month. What does this kind of mean for the future of sports, or what does Title IX mean to you, and kind of where we're at right now?
Well, Title IX's funny, right? Because we opened this by talking about how they're just this year 50, actually giving equal support on the financial and marketing side in the NCAA tournaments to the women's and the men's teams. So the way that Title IX is written is so nuanced, and I think it's got some gaps really for where we've ended up in this place to begin with, because there's, it's so tethered to income or to number of scholarships or whatever it may be, that I think we're in a time where abiding by, like, the threading the needle of the are we abiding by Title IX? Yeah, we're skating by just barely. That's over. Like, right. It's not just we checked the box. It's, are you actually giving women an equal platform, or are you building up the places where the platform being equal is just simply not enough because of the way that our society is structured? So 50 years, it's nothing to scoff at, and it's so major, but I think it's a very convenient launching period kind of that we're at in year 50.
Okay, Marilyn, last question for you. Who is going to take home the NCAA women's title, in your opinion?
Oh, man. I don't know. I think it's hard to look at that. South Carolina got upset in their women's tournament by Kentucky, a team that had a really mediocre, especially early season. To see South Carolina go down was crazy. That was the biggest surprise already in March before we got to the NCAA tournament, because I think before that happened, I would have said the Gamecocks. UConn with Paige back is major. NC State has really made a run of it. Yeah. I'm not just saying that because we're from around here. I think Westmore and the senior class that he has right now have made their presence known. Louisville's always good. Kim Mulkey left 20 years at Baylor to go to LSU, and her Tigers have been good, but they've just been in such a stacked conference in the SEC this year. I don't have a prediction. I just know that it's good that they're getting the spotlight this year the way that they are, because the talent is deeper than it's ever been, I think, throughout NCAA women's basketball.
Right. Well, Marilyn, thank you so much. This has all been so insightful, and happy International Month. We appreciate you so much, and we're looking forward to talking to you again soon.
Thanks so much, Kendra. Glad to be here.
Allison Sports is grounded in an earn first media relations approach that leverages deep relationships and works collaboratively with brands' existing marketing operations to drive communications value from existing and planned sports sponsorships, athlete and celebrity endorsements, and other marketing relationships. Our regular podcasts cover the world of sports through the lens of marketing and brand engagement. Thanks for watching.